Hello, and welcome to the Sovereign Collective podcast, where we bring you real, raw truth for your self-empowerment. I'm your host, Sasha Calavoda, and I believe that you can stand on your own 2 feet, but that you don't have to do it alone. I love learning from people who continually strive to raise the bar, to go against mainstream thinking, and who dare to question the general consensus. People who risk being ridiculed or even risk the loss of their professional status as they bravely question the common narratives and challenge the rest of us to expand our minds and to reconsider what we think we already know. Join me in learning how to take control of your health and your mind so that you can have the energy to think more clearly and the confidence to step up and take responsibility for all aspects of your life. We promise to never censor here because I believe you are strong enough to hear the real, raw truth to make up your own mind. If you like what you find here at the Sovereign Collective podcast, then please share with your friends and family. I so appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in. And now, on to the show. Hey everyone, Sasha here for another interview for the Sovereign Collective podcast. I have another in-house interview that is supporting a timely cause. We just had David, Stefan, and Todd Michael Harris in the house, and now we've got Dr. Bob Dickson talking about another topic, especially for us Calgarians who are on the brink of being poisoned through our waterways with fluoride. So Dr. Bob Dickson has been a huge advocate for fluoride awareness in our water currently, and he had a huge piece in getting it out of our water. I don't remember when that was. You can give us a quick rundown if that after, but just a sec. So this is a man on a mission to help support Calgarians and even anybody who would listen worldwide, because some other people are facing this issue as well. In certain cities, and states, it's being deemed to be a neurotoxin, and we're told to remove it. Yet here, apparently, we have tankers already arriving. This is what I heard of this toxic substance that is going to go into our water, and that is actually legal to dump directly into the ground, air, or water, but yet they're going to bypass it through our bodies and our showers and things like that and put it into the river anyways. So Dr. Bob is here to tell us all about that and what we can do about it, if there is anything we can do about it, and just get people to know the more awareness, because a lot of people don't even realize. For us, it's amazing how many people think, oh, well, we didn't vote that in, it's not coming in. They don't even know that it's about time. I've talked to so many people.
A lot of them think it's already in.
No idea. Some people think it's in. Some people think we voted it down. Some people think it's fine and it's good for us. I say, this is a travesty that we're actually having to put any time, effort, resources into even discussing or dealing with this, because the idea that somebody has the right to medicate or poison our water is ludicrous. So, Dr. Bob, thank you so much for being here today. By the way, I've already interviewed Dr. Bob Dickson. Wow, when was that? It was episode 21. It was a few years ago now. And
I think it was BC, before COVID.
Actually, no, because I started the interview because of this podcast, because of the whole thing.
Okay.
So it was in the early days of
DC
that. It was during, it was DC. This is how we date everything these days. So yes, we talked about it then. And since then, legislation is moving forward to get it into our water. And I don't know how high hopes we have to get it out. I know you are still positive about it, but I also have to see the world as I want to see it. So I can't give up on this topic. So the more we can get the word out, the better. So Dr. Bob, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate this. What the hell? How are we here? Let's talk about how you got involved with this whole situation first before we get into any particulars. How did you get involved with this in the first place? Let's do a quick recap on the history of you getting into it. And then let's talk into the specifics about fluoride and what people need to know now.
Cool. Really quick. Okay, so family doctor, and busy back in the 1990s, 4,000 people in my family practice, and lots of things coming across my desk every day, every week. And so fluoride came up again, and we'd had it put into Calgary it was voted in 1989 for the first time. And then it took them 2 years to build the infrastructure because, as you know, hydrofluorosilicic acid is so toxic, it needs huge infrastructure. It'll eat through your desk, through your floor, through everything. They have to come in with hazmat suits to clean it up. So it took them 2 years to build the infrastructure. So it came in 1991. And then some radical activist conspiracy theorists in Calgary kept at the city council for the 1990s. And in 1998, they got them to do another plebiscite. The first 4 plebiscites in Calgary had defeated water fluoridation. So that was in the 60s and 70s. And it was always pretty close because it's a polarized issue, just like it is now. But those four defeated it. And then in 1989, my friend, Dr. David Swan, was a medical officer of health. Do you know David?
I don't know. No.
He was the former leader of the Liberal Party of
I
Alberta
know
as
the
well.
name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he brought water fluoridation into Calgary. And so it passed by, I think it was 52 to 48% in that 1989 vote. So then they pressed him, had another plebiscite. Oh, and an expert panel. I love expert panels. So expert panel. So who chooses the expert panel?
Right.
Well, the rabid pro-fluoridationist medical officer of health. He chooses an expert panel. So there's four very strong. Can we use the word rabid?
Sure.
Rabid
Any word you
pro-fluoridationist.
want, yeah.
Okay. And so four on the panel are very strong pro-fluoridationists from the University of Calgary. And the fifth one is a statistician who's neutral. And so they go through all the fluoride literature that they were given, which is usually the pro-fluoride literature. And they came up with a strong recommendation that we keep fluoride in, but lower it from 1 part per million to 0.8 parts per million in our water. And so that was passed 4-1 with the statistician going, are you kidding? After looking at all this science, we're gonna pass this. So they just kind of pushed his speeches right under the table and voted strongly to continue on with water fluoridation. So after I voted yes in that plebiscite. I voted yes for water fluoridation.
Oh.
Busy family doc, didn't know anything about it. Got all these glitzy brochures and advertisements on the radios and TV from Alberta Health Services, from the medical officers of health, the dental officers, and it looked pretty good. It's going to help the poor kids. Well, I'm all over that. I was chair of Tools for Peace and president of Change for Children. So water fluoridation, yes. And so I voted for it. And then this activist came and said, why don't you look at the science yourself? And I took that as a challenge, and I did. And I went, OMG, what have I done here? I made a mistake. Because there's lots of science against it. We're not doing a good thing. So I took it to Dr. James Beck, who was a mentor of mine at the University of Calgary Medical School. And he's PhD MD, so double PhD MD from the States. And I said, Jim, what do you know about water fluoridation? He goes, well, I'm from the States. Everybody fluoridates down there. Not much. I guess it's a good thing. So, well, would you mind looking at the science? So he did. He's just recently retired. He had lots of time. He looked at the science, and a couple of weeks later, he said the same thing as me. OMG, what have we done here? Made a major mistake. So I said, well, will you help me do something about it? And he says, sure. He says, with all the science we have here there's 1999 by that time. With all the science we have here in 1999, it'll be gone in a few months.
1999?
1999. Guess how long it took us to get it out of city council? 11, 12 years, because we got it taken out in 2011.
It's only been out for that long?
Yeah, 14 years.
No way. I thought it came out way earlier than that.
No, 14 years, 2 months ago.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, February of 2011.
Wow. Okay.
So it took us a long time meeting with dentists, doctors, deans of medical schools, colleges of dentistry, but mostly city councilors. We worked with the city councilors, and there's some really progressive city councilors back in the day. So they came out with a motion in 2010 that was just so strong. Do you remember Drew Farrell and Brian Pencott and Andre Chabot? Andre's still with us. He came back actually for this last term. Anyway, there's some really strong John Moore, ethical people, Jim Stevenson that fought against water fluoridation and supported us. So we finally got it passed without a plebiscite. And that's a good time to make this point, is that you should never be voting on something medical in a plebiscite.
It's ridiculous.
Because it can be manipulated, it can be controlled, it can be swayed like it was.
Well, how are people voting on something they know nothing about? You don't have the right to have an opinion unless you've looked at the data and done the research, right?
That's a major point. But the other thing is, I shouldn't be voting on what medication for you to take unless you come to me as a doctor, and you shouldn't be voting on a medication that all your neighbors should be taking. And that's what you do in a plebiscite.
Right.
You're voting on what medication other people are going to take, and people you don't know often.
Right.
So,
can I ask you, what are they like? Are they completely fabricating the science to support putting it in? Like, what are they leaning on to convince people? Is it just straight out lies? Like, what is it?
Let me give you I don't know about a short answer, because that's a long question. Long answer to a short question. So what are they relying on? The pro advocates now, Dr. Johnny Johnson, the head of the American Fluoridation Society, retired dentist who travels all over North America on the anti-fluoridation, on the American Fluoridation Study dime, and he just tells fabrication after fabrication. 10,000, thousands of studies, then 10,000 studies, then 20,000 studies that promote water fluoridation. And then the last time I heard him down in Florida, 50,000 studies. There aren't any of those studies.
Like they're literally making it up.
They're making that number up. There are some studies. And so are you familiar with the Cochrane collaboration? The esteemed body, the gold standard of medical evaluation around the world?
I'm going to move us a little bit just to get you in the shot a little better. There we go. Okay. Yes.
When I talk with my right hand, you have to be able to see.
Yeah. That'll be your left. But
so the Cochrane collaboration evaluates medical practices around the world, and they're just expert people, and they're esteemed all around the medical world. And so in 2015, they did their first study on water fluoridation, and they went, yeah, there's a few thousand studies out there. They boiled them down to 19 studies that were reasonable. There's no good studies, 19 studies that were relevant and meaningful. And they said, and those were all done, those 19 were done after 1975 when toothpaste came in with fluoride in it. So prior to that, the studies were pretty bad and just really didn't mean much. So you can say you might have 1,000 studies or a few thousand studies, but if they're before 1975 and meaningless, I mean, what's the point? So they came up with 19 studies that were reasonable, and most of them didn't show any effect in kids, maybe up to high as 25 or 26% reduction in cavities. Now, that might sound good to people, but when you've got 2, 3, 4 cavities per child and you're reducing it by 25%, that's a half to one cavity a lifetime. Mm-hmm. So if you use those numbers, the raw numbers, the pure numbers, it doesn't sound that good, does it? So that's why they always use 25 or 26%. So anyway, they did that evaluation, and they also said in that 2015 evaluation, the Cochrane collaboration said no effect in adults or seniors. Now, to this day, last week, Juliette Gachon, the head of the Calgary Kids for Safe Health or something, she's always saying it's good for the babies, good for the kids, good for the teens, adults, seniors, even good for the seniors. Well, it makes bones harder and more brittle and easier to fracture, including teeth.
Well, and what about dental fluorosis? What about, like, I have a friend who could not maintain, she was given fluoride drops as a child. She could not maintain a pregnancy. She kept on miscarrying, and I got her on, well, she listened to a podcast and she got into iodine with high doses of iodine because it's depleting iodine, and now she has a baby. Mm-hmm. And she couldn't maintain a pregnancy before that, and she did everything.
How long ago was that?
Her baby is now maybe a year and a half or so.
And she's from here?
She moved away. She's in Alberta, but she used to be here. Yeah. Yeah.
So she wouldn't have fluoride in her water at that time.
She was given fluoride by her father. Yeah. Fluoride drops.
As a kid.
And
I'm not sure if that long sense.
No. But if you never replenish and you're living in a low iodine area.
Iodine deficiency is the main thing. So you cured iodine deficiency, and I bet that's what was the main thing. Fluoride does cause iodine deficiency.
Right.
And causes iodine competes with the fluoride molecule.
Right. Exactly. So what about dental fluorosis in kids that are given iodine? Isn't that a huge factor in the quality of their teeth?
Oh, the pro-fluoridationist says it's only cosmetic and you never have to do anything about it. So it's not even worth talking about. The newest studies have shown, yes, it's becoming more and more prominent. And even the CDC, the Center for Disease Control in the States, their studies, they've been doing studies with their NHANES cohort for decades. And they've gone from, they guaranteed way back in the day, it'd never be above 10 or 15% fluorosis with their levels of in the city waters control. But those levels have gone up from 10 and 15 to 20 to 40 to 60. They're now over 70% fluorosis in teens in the United States.
No.
70%. That's with the CDC's own data. Now, if you look at that, to be fair, about 80% of those are mild fluorosis. So you might just get a few streaks or flecks on your back teeth, maybe a couple on your front teeth. And if they're in the front teeth, kids and teens aren't going to want to smile. So it affects them psychologically more than anything. Mild fluorosis is your first visible sign that you have too much fluoride in your body, a fluoride toxicity. Mm-hmm. So, you got to look at that. If you're showing it on the teeth, that means it's showing in the other parts of your body, your thyroid, your bones,
Right.
your gut, your liver.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the 20% that are moderate to severe are the ones we get concerned about. And they talk about saving $38 per person, or sometimes they say $10, sometimes they say 120. They're all over the map with how many dollars saved per dollar spent on water fluoridation. So the most common one I hear is $38 saved for $1 spent on water fluoridation. Well, is that the case? They don't factor in anything. They don't factor in fixing moderate to severe fluorosis. And just as a, for instance, a really good dentist friend of mine downtown with a pediatric and adult practice too, he fixed two of the kids that grew up in the Calgary's fluoridated time as teens, kids and teens. And they were in the severe category, which is only about 2 to 3% of that.
Okay.
70% of kids that have fluorosis. But those, all their teeth were destroyed by fluoride, by water fluoride.
Wow.
And it costs $70,000 a patient.
Wow.
So how many times do you save $38 on one cavity to make up for $70,000 in one kid's teeth destroyed?
Right.
And that affects your whole life. If
Of course
your
it
teeth
does.
destroyed and you're getting dental services like that.
You're getting dental services and just your self-esteem and just like everybody wants a nice white smile. You know, it's just there's so much.
Non-fluoride, I'm sure.
Non-fluoride, definitely no fluoride. I make my own tooth powder. Yes.
So fluorosis, we got to talk about that, but there's so much more above and beyond that.
Of course.
So much more.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you got it out, and there's a crazy. So where are we now? Where are we sitting?
Okay, good question. So we won in 2011, got it taken out without a plebiscite. So there's 4 plebiscites that defeated it, and now that 1998 plebiscite was the second one that passed it. So 4-2. So they took it out. The councillors took it out without a plebiscite, and to their credit, the really ethical ones there, especially I remember Brian Pencott saying, he says, Dr. Bob, we're not scientists. We're not trained to be scientists. We're not meant to be scientists. We can't be scientists. You bring us in piles and piles of literature. The pro-fluoridationists bring us in little piles. We're not scientists. We can't make that decision on science. So what we have to make it on is what we're trained in, what we can do, what we know. And that's the morals and the ethics of mass medicating an entire population.
Yeah.
So they based that decision in 2011 to take it out of the water on their own without a plebiscite on the morals and ethics of mass medicating. And it also helped that they were going to have to spend $6 million on infrastructure, and they didn't really want to do that. So those two things, those are the two major factors.
Well, I've heard some big numbers spent on infrastructure recently.
We're gonna get into that.
Okay.
Yeah. So during the 2010s, the pro-fluoridationists really hammered away at councillors in the press, in private, in events and organizations, everywhere they could. They hammered away at them. And so the anti-fluoridation councillors started to drop off a bit. So then they got city council to bring in an expert panel again from the O'Brien Institute of Public Health at the university. Again, pretty much all pro-fluoridationists. And so that's when we had our big fluoridation day in 2019 at City Hall, 12 hours. And they rigged that totally so it would be pro-fluoridation. The pro-fluoridationists and the press were all there in the morning. All the councillors were there in the morning. And after they give their presentations, all the councillors, most of the councillors went away, all the press went away, and us anti-fluoridationists that I'd flown in from different parts of the states and whatever, we got up to give ours. So out of that 2019 program, they made a motion to look at what the costs would be, and also if they could have a plebiscite again. And so out of that came, when the new council came in 2021, it's when they started the real ball rolling. But before that, in 2021, they did determine we should have a plebiscite again to decide whether you should medicate your neighbor.
So ridiculous.
So again, we mounted a really good campaign. I had 20 people in my executive committee. We worked hard. We raised a lot of money. We put out this brochure that you might have seen before, which is on our Safe Water Calgary website. And this brochure has 5 people on the front. And there's me there. There's a psychologist with 2 kids. There's a financial planner that looks at the economics, the poor economics of it. There's Jennifer Alexander, who has since passed away. Unfortunately, she was a psychotherapist and a hypnotherapist. This one's important. This is Dr. Craig Young. He's one of the best dentists in the country, one of the most knowledgeable scientific dentists. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Great.
He's an amazing guy. He calls himself a scientific nerd. He studies all these things. And he's really good and smart.
Mhm.
And so he came on our team and he wrote a really nice blurb. And I think it's worth reading this quickly.
Yeah,
It's very
go.
short. So this is what Dr. Craig Young, one of the best dentists in the country, says. As a dentist, I oppose fluoridation along with many of my colleagues in Calgary. That means many other dentists. There is a consensus that fluoride's preventative actions against cavities are primarily topical, so therefore not ingested or not swallowed. Studies show that at best, fluoridation results in less than one cavity per child, as we talked, probably closer to half a cavity at that time. World Health Organization data shows that fluoridated and non-fluoridated nations have virtually the same cavity rates. You cannot outprescribe diet and lifestyle. I love that quote. You cannot outprescribe diet and lifestyle. Okay, so go on our safewatercalgary.com website and you'll see this. You'll see the science on the back that shows in 2016 when the first studies came out, Calgary versus Edmonton, our teeth were exactly the same. We didn't have fluoride for 4 years and they had fluoride since 1967. But this one you have to look at because if you look on our website, there's a blank white space there. And this is how the anti-fluoridationists play the game.
What do you
That's how the
mean?
pro-fluoridationists. So the day after we delivered this to over 400,000 Calgary homes, the Alberta Dental College and Association phoned him up and said, you're going to lose your license and lose your practice, your very lucrative practice,
Bullying.
unless you
The
pull away
unreal.
completely, dissociate yourself from Safe Water Calgary.
Wow.
The day after.
Wow.
So Craig is still a supporter. Dr. Young is still a supporter of
course.
us. He's still very strongly anti-fluoride, and it doesn't use it in his clinic except for maybe a topical application occasionally. But he is not allowed to talk with Safe Water Calgary. And we have
What's the website for people? Safewatercalgary.com?
safewatercalgary.com.
Okay.
I don't know if you have someplace you can put slides and things later. I can send you the important websites with.
If there's links, I will definitely include everything in
Yeah.
the show notes. Yeah,
Sounds
for sure. Yeah.
So safewatercalgary.com. I'm also the chair of Fluoride Free Canada, which is fluoridefreecanada.ca. I also work with the Fluoride Action Network out of the United States, which is the largest repository of fluoride information in the world. Has some pro information on it too, but mainly anti-fluoridation because we have so much more good, new, and current science.
Of course, because that's the truth.
So we should maybe talk about the new science. What do you think?
Let's talk about it. Yeah.
Okay, so we've had some major wins in the past year and a half. Let's just stick with 2024, 25. So the first part of 2024, we had the Lotus study out of England. 6.4 million participants over 10 years. Guess what that showed? It was looking at effectiveness. Less than 4%, 2 to 3%. That's what they say, effectiveness over 10 years. 2 to 3%. That equates to less than 1/4 of one cavity. It's more like 1/5 of a cavity a lifetime saved with water fluoridation. So you're going to spend these millions of dollars. You're going to have this volatile stuff that the workers have to handle with N95 masks and hazmat suits and whatever. Spills, you have to have emergency people come in with hazmat suits to clean it up. You go in there and breathe it. If it happens to be leaking in the system that they're using, they get sick. So anyway, 2 to 3% effectiveness with that 6.4 million people in the Lotus study. Then comes along the NTP report, the National Toxicology Program. Are you familiar with them, the NTP report?
No.
So they're a group of scientists that kind of cross the genres and the alphabet organizations in the States, the CDC, the FDA, the HHS, the EPA. So it's a group of scientists from those different bodies that have studied fluoridation for now 8 years. 8 years. And so in 2000, they'd studied it for 4 years and they came up with their draft report that was pretty much finished. They were attacked, they were vilified, they were censored, they were pushed down, they were made to take it back to NASM, their parent body, and they had to revise it twice. That's never happened before in the history of the United States chemicals. They had to revise it twice. And so they had to water it down, and we got it forced in August of 2024. So August of last year, we finally got it forced out through FOIA's Freedom of Information Acts, and the federal judge finally forced it out. And so the NTP report says brain damage.
Brain damage, minor.
Yeah. And they studied, they started off with thousands of reports. So they did animal studies, in vivo, in vitro studies. They looked at the whole spectrum and they narrowed it down. They threw out the bad ones, they threw out the poor ones, they threw out the mediocre ones. And they came out with 72 studies that were really decent. And out of those 72, top studies, 64 of those showed brain damage.
64.
But you take that down further, the very top 19 studies out of those 72, the most respected, the highest rated and highest ranked ones, 18 of the 19 showed brain damage. But that's safe and effective. You hear it every day, safe and effective. There's no evidence.
So how does that manifest itself in what kind of brain damage? What would we see in people? Do you know?
Well, there's two things that we could look at there. One is the federal court case in the United States that we won, and that also came out in 2024. The judgment came out. The last 2 weeks of the court were in February of 2024. The judge took about 6 months to write his report, and he came out. He wanted that NTP report to come out before he finished his own report. And so his report came out on September 24th of 2024, and it was an 80-page document that's readily available on the Fluoride Action Network if you want to read. It's really good reading. And he came out with, yes, probable brain damage, likely brain damage at close to what we fluoridate with, at or close to what we fluoridate with in North America. United States and Canada, New Zealand, Australia, the same thing, 0.7 parts per million. Likely probable brain damage in those cohorts.
So that's the one that also is like brain damage neurotoxin. That's the one that recent ruling that was.
That's the one.
Yeah. Okay.
So that was September of 2024.
Okay. Yeah.
So that was the major court case that our organization, FAN, Fluoride Action Network, had fought, along with Moms Against Fluoride, Food and Water Watch, etc., and a couple of plaintiffs that had been injured. And ones that had fluoride when they were pregnant and their kids were damaged. So they won that one. Now we won that case. So, and then the other big one that came out, so those are the top three, the Lotus study, the NTP report, the federal court case ruling, and then in October of 2024, another Cochrane collaboration report. And this one looked at 21 of the top meta-analysis and studies showing effectiveness or not. And that one came out with less than 4%. So again, this 25 or 26% they've been talking about for decades. And some of them say, Dr. Johnny Johnson just said, 50%, it's 50%. He just pulls that off the top of his head. And he says it to parliamentarians. He says it to decision makers.
Like this, just get away with these lies. Like it's just so frustrating.
One that people can watch is the Bartow City Council. It's a small city in Florida. And in November, they had a council meeting. They had 5 councilors, and they had Dr. Johnny Johnson and Dr. Stephen Slott, who are both retired dentists. Stephen is their communication director for the American Fluoridation Society. So they talked first. And then Dr. Joseph Ladapo, do you know Joseph Ladapo, the Surgeon General from Florida, who's also been standing up against vaccinations in Florida? He's the main medical person in Florida, the Surgeon General. He's a tall, elegant black fellow, really nice guy, well-spoken, soft-spoken, highly, highly educated. They headhunted him from Los Angeles, where he has like double PhDs and whatever. And so he stood up after Dr. Johnny Johnson and Stephen Slott had talking this pro-fluoride, really lies, disinformation.
Right.
And he said, it makes me physically sick. He looked over at them and he says, that makes me physically sick when you people put lies like that out in the public.
Love that.
And then the last half of this presentation, where my friend's Dr. Griffin Cole, who's one of the top dentists, and he's with the IAONT, which is a group of about 1,000 doctors and dentists in the States, mostly dentists, to study toxicology. It's, let's see if I can remember, International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology.
Okay.
So these people know toxicology inside and out. They're toxicologists, dentists, doctors, researchers. So Griffin stood up and did a really good 10 or 15-minute presentation. And then Dr. Ashley Malin did a great presentation too. And that can lead us into the Canadian cohort, because there's a Canadian cohort called MIREC. Have you heard of MIREC before? It was formed by Health Canada in 2006, and it's gone on since then. So they've studied women that were pregnant and then their kids as they were born, and studied the kids coming up and the women after. And it's MIREC stands for Maternal and Infant Research and Environmental Contaminants. So they've monitored about 5 cities that were fluoridated and 5 that weren't. And they're looking at things other than fluoride too. But in 2015, the researchers out of York University, Dr. Christine Till, Dr. Rivka Green, and then Dr. Ashley Malin, started saying, we got to look at this closer. Like, we got the data right there. Like, all the information is there. Let's pull it together. So they've come out with about a dozen studies since. The first one was published in JAMA, the Journal of the American
Mhm.
Medical Association Pediatrics in 2019. And that was the highest altimetric scale that's ever been seen in recent years. And the editors knew they were going to get taken down and attacked and whatever. And they were right. They had triple vetted this study and the information and data. And they were still attacked vociferously.
It's so insane. It's the ethics and the morals in the whole everything. It's like, what is science? Science is not a fabrication based on your religion.
It's questioning
right?
things.
Yes, it's so frustrating. Let's get to the truth, people, not work on your agenda. I have to say, in your opinion, who benefits by pushing this obvious sham down people's throats? Who is benefiting, in your opinion, from putting this in people's water?
Would your guess be money, money, money?
Yeah. I think go beyond money, though. Right?
Well, it does a bit, but money's the main driver. So if you look at what's put in our water now, it's not natural calcium fluoride that's in our Bow River here. It's in our Elbow River. We have about 0.2 parts per million in our Bow River, 0.3 maybe at a high time in the Elbow River. That's natural calcium fluoride, which is bound quite tightly. What they're putting in is hydrofluorosilicic acid. It's not pharmaceutical grade sodium fluoride like you'd have, or some people have in their toothpaste. It's hydrofluorosilicic acid, which is, as you mentioned earlier, not allowed in the air, not allowed in the rivers, lakes, streams, or ground. And they go, oh, we're going to have to dispose of this at thousands of dollars a ton in a special disposal plant.
Mm-hmm.
Or we can convince doctors and kids that it's good for them. And we can put in city water. And as you mentioned earlier, then people get to dispose of it in their bodies.
Right.
And of course, we only drink about 1 to 5% of water.
And then it just
so
goes through.
95% goes through unchecked back into the environment. The environmentalists should be all over this. It should be done environmentally, should be finished, because Environment Canada says that it's a toxic waste product. And we're putting in the city.
And it's clearly like the information. And it's funny because I remember when this plebiscite was going on, there was one in my community here when on the same lawn, keeping waters clean and then vote yes for fluoride at the same time. Like you have no idea what you're talking about, right? You have no idea. So what industry is this coming from these days?
So the main one is Mosaic and their friends down in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And
fertilizer?
Fertilizer.
Yeah.
It's a phosphate fertilizer industry that
Yeah.
has to scrub this toxic fluoride out of their hydrofluorosilicic acid out of their smokestacks. And so they profit, we estimated a few years ago, it's probably about $250 million a year that they profit on just putting it in our water rather than having to dispose of it themselves. But the main ones are our good old Colgate and Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson, the people that make the toothpaste. They're the ones that benefit. They make toothpaste, foams, gels, rinses, sealants, all those sorts of fluoride products. That's probably 20, 25, maybe 30 billion a year. Let's just say 20.
They're using that same toxic waste for their products, their fluoridated products?
No, they would purify it. They purify that down. They take out all the toxins. So along with that toxic waste that's scrubbed out of there comes traces, small amounts, traces of lead, arsenic, mercury, strontium, bromium, all kinds of really nasty stuff that we don't need in our bodies by accumulating.
And so they're taking the raw waste. They're not
taking
purifying
dirty scrubber waste that's scrubbed out of there, put in holding tanks, truck backs up, fills it up and brings it up to Calgary. Calgary cleans their water with 4 or 5 processes, and then just before it comes to your home, they shoot in some hydrofluorosilicic acid of the smokestack waste.
It's just
now sometimes they dry it and they put it in bags that have big skull and crossbones on, and those workers are really careful with those bags, and they'll dump that powdered bag into a big holding tank, and then that's injected in. It is not purified. And we crunched some numbers here lately with Safe Water Calgary. If we were to put pharmaceutical grade sodium fluoride in Calgary water, it'd cost us probably between $100 and $200 million a year for the product. Now it's costing them about $1 million. If they put pure sodium fluoride in there, it costs about $100+ million.
But we had to upgrade the infrastructure, did we not?
We had to totally
did that
rebuild it.
not come to a bill of like 20 million or something?
We're getting into another story.
Okay.
So we have a plebiscite in 2021. We are not allowed to do anything, say anything on the public airwaves. We're banned. For the last 6 years, we've been banned from anything public. We can't print in the Calgary Herald. We can't get on the airwaves, on TV or radio. It's not allowed. from highest pay grade, it's not allowed. So what do? Well, we do
Both
some
sides,
social.
just one side.
We do some social media stuff. In the meantime, Alberta Health, just like when I voted for it in 1998, Alberta Health is putting out tons of information. They're saying to their 120,000 employees, vote for fluoride. If your relatives live in Calgary, have them vote for fluoride. The CMPA, the Alberta Dental Association of College, the Canadian Dental Association, Health Canada, it's all promoting it. They don't have it regulated. They're just promoting it. So we lost that plebiscite in 2021 by 62 to 38%. That's the biggest failure we've ever had in the 6-7 plebiscites now we've had in Calgary. That's the most we've failed.
I question the legitimacy of that plebiscite.
We're not allowed to educate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If people are educated about this, there's no way they'd vote on putting in one of the most toxic elements in the planet that's equivalent to arsenic and lead. We've worked for decades to get arsenic and lead down to virtually zero in our water and our environment. And now we're putting fluoride in. Fluoride's going to be at that level at some point. It's just not right now. So we lost that. And the councillors immediately were forced into the very first thing they did when the new council came in 2021. There was 8 new councillors and a new mayor. And they said, well, what do you think about water fluoridation? We're supposed to be looking at that again. Sure, let's put it in. Let's make a motion to put it in. There was no resistance. We'd offered them expert advice on the other side so we could have expert panel on both sides. No, we don't need that. We're just going to put water fluoridation in. And they voted 13 to 2 to refluoridate. And they gave at that time in February, they passed the actual motion of 2022. They passed the motion to give Waterworks $10 million to build a new infrastructure because the other one was destroyed. So $10 million. Waterworks says we'll have it done by 2023. 2023, they come back to City Council and they go, geez, we're kind of, the supply infrastructure and costs are going up. And this is during that little virus. And so they said, we need an extra $18 million. That didn't even go to council. You know where that $18 million came out of? The administrator, David Duckworth, signed a check out of the slush fund and gave it to them. Councillors are still angry about that. They didn't have a say in that extra $18 million. So $28 million.
To 28.
$28 million, to your previous question, have been spent on infrastructure. And that's all done. All the infrastructure new has been built at Bears Paw and at the Elbow plant down south. And so $28 million has been spent. As you said, the trucks are coming in with fluoride already, hydrofluorosilicic acid. Don't go anywhere near those trucks if they happen to spill anything.
Seriously.
And so they're ready to go, but they've been delaying. And now they're saying the end of Q2 was supposed to be Q1 of 2025, which is January, February, March. That's passed. And now they're saying the end of Q2, and they'll give us a month's notice. So that's probably the end of June. They're going to start putting fluoride in. We've been pounding away at city councillors and the mayor to put a pause, a moratorium. Just a pause. Don't have to stop it. Don't have to halt it. You don't have to quit this at all. Just put a pause on it to look at the new science that's out. Some of the science I was just outlining.
Yeah.
They're not willing to do it because they would look bad if they did that. As Alan Greenspan said when he almost crashed the whole world's economy back in 2008-9, he says the hardest thing in the world to do is to get a public servant to change their mind. He says, indeed, it's a Herculean task. And that is so, friends.
Wow.
It's hard to get a public servant to change their mind. So the councillors now are just saying 4 of them are not running again. 4 of them aren't running in October of this year for the election, civic election. And so you think they might be able to stand up and say, geez, we could probably put a halt on this now.
Yeah.
And let the new council deal with it. But they're not willing to do that. And then the councillors that are in, and one of them, Sonia's running for mayor, they're just not willing to take a stand on it. They say, well, it's happening. We've already spent the $28 million. We can't reverse that. And the trucks are already here. We can't reverse that because now we'd have to spend a whole lot of money disposing of that. You think Mosaic is going to take that hydrofluorosilicic acid
but we
back?
paid for it now. But so we should just poison the people and the water and the life in general.
Yeah. So,
and downstream of us too. Now this is impacting downstream, not just the environment, but anybody like that's on the water, like anybody. Like it's just it's so crazy. Are there studies on What about topically, like in the shower and things like that? What about?
Yeah, you shouldn't have it on your skin because your skin's the biggest organ in the body. So you will absorb some. If you bath, if you shower, probably not very much really. But if you're going to detoxify completely in this, and that's another topic you wanted to get into, is what can we do about it?
Right.
Well, we can just keep drinking Calgary water along with fluoride
I don't
in a
think
couple
so.
months and hormones, pesticides, herbicides, whatever else is in there, trace elements, antibiotics. Or you can start purifying your water. And so if you purify your water, we've got a really good website, not me, Tracy Kroll, a young engineer in Ontario, has
Okay.
a really good website called Truth About Fluoride. Not that, just Truth About Fluoride, all one word, .com. I'll send that website to you
Okay.
later.
Yeah.
Truthaboutfluoride.com. And he's reviewed a lot of things. He's reviewed teas. Tea really concentrates fluoride. He's reviewed
Yeah.
40 some teas and tells you the levels of concentration in there. He's reviewed very well the fridge filters, the pitcher filters like Brita, don't do anything
Right.
about fluoride. Fluoride's a
Right.
tiny ion, very aggressive little ion, and doesn't do anything for fluoride. It'll take out the chlorine, but not anything else.
Right.
So he's reviewed fridge filters, counter filters, under the sink filters, and whole house reverse osmosis type filters. And so filters can cost you anywhere from $40 for a Brita filter to $12,000 for a reverse osmosis system. Whole house, anywhere in between. You can get reverse osmosis systems and newer systems a little less than that for maybe $1,000, $2,000 a whole house. But the normal ones would be around $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 for a whole house system. So that takes the fluoride out that you're going to bathe in,
Right.
and the fluoride out that you're going to cook in, that you're going to wash your car in, your whole house system. Yeah, so that's the way to get around it if it does get in our water. As mentioned before, we're still fighting City Council tooth and nail. We're trying to get them to put a pause on it. We're also working with Danielle Smith, the Premier. We're working with Rebecca Schultz, the head of Environment. Environment should be able to end this because Health Canada says, or Environment Canada says 0.12 parts per million should be the maximum in our water system. Well, 0.7, we're going to be flushing all that back into the water system. We're way over that limit.
The environmentalists on this, like the true environmentalists, like this is, where are they speaking up? Because this is a massive impact. They're not. Like, how is that? How do these people go to bed?
As I said before, that could be that could stop it cold in its tracks right there. Water fluoridation would be gone if we used environmental impact. Yeah, so we're also working with the Ministry of Justice. So Mickey Amory says, well, it probably is a medication like it's been proved in the Supreme Court of New Brunswick and the FDA and the federal court in the United States that we just won on that 80-page judgment. It's proved to be a medication. If it's a medication, it should be regulated by Health Canada, and it's not. They just go, oh, no, we don't regulate that. No, but we recommend it. Like you should do it at 0.7 parts per million. But that's up to the provinces and the municipalities. Province goes, oh, yeah, we recommend it too, but we don't regulate it. That's up to you little guys in the municipalities. And the municipal councillors and mayor go, I mean, we have to take all the responsibility for possibly being sued and for possibly harming up to 15% of our population with this. Oh, and we don't know science. Those poor counselors. I mean, they really are in a tough bind.
But how did it get passed at such a huge, like it was very much pro?
Juliette Gachon and her Calgarians for Kids Health. And she's a tenacious lawyer, historian from the University of Calgary, who knows very little about water fluoridation, but she knows how to talk about water fluoridation. She's the talking head for the American Fluoridation Society I mentioned earlier, Dr. Johnny Johnson and his small team out of Florida. And so, yeah, she puts out the talking points quite well. And she's just tenacious. So just as to give you an example, she just earlier this month in the Probus, do you know the Probus Council, the pro-business council in Calgary? They put on a big event every month and they have a guest speaker. She was a guest speaker.
Oh, lovely.
And so she put slides up. I wasn't there. I was still in Mexico, but friends of mine went and they took some pictures. And about half the presentation, I'm told, was about me, about how bad a person I am.
Oh, you're kidding.
Slides of me. Slides of the things I've been doing, the nasty things I'm harming the poor kids in Calgary by keeping this wonderful, safe, and effective thing called water fluoridation away from them.
Unbelievable.
And yeah, it's just very sad. And the misinformation.
The lows that this whole theater of the political climate and all these so-called activist things and these environmental things, like they just stoop so low. Like why would like mounting a personal attack on you? And how do people,
Because I'm the
shocked
face of
is that well, yeah, and thank you for that, by the way. Thank you for all that you're doing because you are putting yourself out there, but my God, I just don't understand how that works. Like it's very telling about where people are at these days when they'll just, will just slime you, and then that'll be enough to convince me.
That's what they do. They attack people. It's ad hominem attacks, and that's the mainstay of their presentations now. She even did that with City Council this last week when a woman wrote in about all the harms caused, and well, that Dr. Dickson. And so I just put up a little blurb into the Washington State, the Ministry of Health, to help one of my dentist friends down there, Dr. Bill Osmondson, who's just a great guy. If you want to read something really good, I can send you Dr. Bill's top 5 reasons.
Yeah.
Top 5, it's 5 pages. The top reasons why he doesn't fluoridate. He changed his mind about the same time I did, 25 years ago. He changed his mind because he was a dentist studying a lot and doing lots of cosmetic dentistry, and he promoted water fluoridation until he read the science. And so his points in those 5 pages, I think he actually has about 28 or 29 points in there. It is so well written. It is so good.
Okay.
So I was helping him with in Washington State where he lives. He's out of Seattle. And so I just said to the Washington Ministry of Health, I can sum up water fluoridation in a very few words. It lacks common sense. It's not common sense to put a toxin in our water when we don't control dose and dosage. It's highly unethical as there's no informed consent. It violates the precautionary principle, which we've turned upside down, which they've turned upside down. Oh, it's totally, we don't know. Well, let's put it in and find out. And if you guys can prove that it's not safe, then we'll take it out. But we're going to negate every study that ever comes out. So you can't prove that it's not safe. Yeah, exactly, upside down. 4th point, it damages kids' brains, especially in who? Who does it damage the most? Water fluoridation and brain damage. Who damage? What demographic does it damage the most? What ethnicity? Ethnicities, we should use plural.
I don't know. I don't know.
The poor.
Oh, like more the demographic that, okay.
Yeah, the poor are harmed more.
Yeah.
Blacks are harmed more by good studies out of the States. Colored people other than blacks are harmed more. LULAC. Oh, all these acronyms. The League of United Latin American Citizens, LULAC, has right on their website, whereas, it harms more of our people and blah, blah. They don't recommend it neither. Harms more Latinos, Hispanics.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it harms more babies and kids, the poor, the disadvantaged, people of color.
And just think of all those little developing brains and people don't know and they don't have the money to purify their water and they need water.
And guess who it harms more amongst the poor? So the poor don't have money to buy $12,000 reverse osmosis systems. So they're mainly drinking tap water. And if a woman is pregnant during if she's drinking fluoridated water during her pregnancy, and then she can't breastfeed for whatever reason, and she's using fluoridated water to mix formula, those kids can have between 5 to 9 IQ points loss. 5 points, if everybody in Canada was shifted 5 IQ points down, we'd have the bell curve of intellect, average being 100. You take the 50% on this side that are developmentally challenged and increase that by 50%. And then on the other side, you have the geniuses. If you take 50% less geniuses there, it shifts that whole bell curve. It'd break our entire economy in our society. We'd have 50% less geniuses to help us solve the problems that we need to solve. And we'd have to support 50% more handicapped people.
Kind of seems like we want to go there, doesn't it?
Well, we're moving in that direction. We're putting it back in Calgary's water. And another point, the last point I made there to the Washington State folks is that fluoride is not needed for a single body function. Well, the dentists all say, yeah, well, it helps the teeth. It strengthens the teeth. We need it to make the teeth stronger. Well, it does go in if you use in utero and in babies and children. It does go in and replaces the hydroxyapatite that's the infrastructure of bones. It replaces it with fluorapatite. So it is a little bit stronger, but if you make a steel rod too strong, it'll snap. It has to have some flexibility in it.
Yeah. But there is calc fluoride tissue salt, which is calcium fluoride tissue salt, which is one of those I don't know if you're aware of the tissue salts, but that is one of the primary tissue salts called for enamel and bone covering, but it's kelp fluor in a homeopathic dose.
Mm-hmm.
And it's found in the body. But it has nothing to do with what they're putting in our water.
Right.
And it's in tiny, tiny, tiny amounts. Like we're talking homeopathic.
But
doses.
that would stimulate the need for more fluoride. Whereas if you use hydroxyapatite toothpaste, nanohydroxyapatite is what I use. It's what your body's made of. It's natural.
Yeah.
It helps because you're constantly gaining and losing teeth structure, enamel.
Yeah.
And so if you replace it with what's natural.
But kelp fluor is a one. Like it actually causes it. There's a lot. I won't get into it now, but it has to do a lot with flexibility of tissues and things like that. It is one of the ones. It was found in the 1800s that if we don't have it, then things change. But it's very different. It would naturally be there in our food and in our water and everything in a tiny, tiny amount. It is, but the toxic waste from the fertilizer industry, which have you ever seen the movie, by the way, Poison on Tap?
Poison on Tap, I might have. Dark Waters was the one I thought you were going to say.
Oh, I haven't seen Dark Waters because Poison on Tap was one from a while ago where they show the harm that the fertilizer industry is causing to the environment and the pits it's causing, and then how all the stuff that's coming out of their industries, like pitting the windshields of cars, peeling the nylons off of the women's legs. This is back in the day when one guy was very much harmed by this. Oh, here's $5, go get yourself some new nylons, kind of thing. So, but Dark Waters and Poison on Tap, I haven't seen Dark Waters. I should watch. I think that's a more recent one because
yes,
Poison
it's about 2019.
Yeah, Poison on Tap's
it was about the lawyer who single-handedly fought DuPont. It is such a good story. Oh,
okay, gotta watch that.
That's a PFAS story.
PFAS. Help.
Chlorinated, fluoridated.
Okay.
PFAS.
Okay. So what do we do, Dr. Bob?
Well, we keep fighting City Council. So you can go to safewatercalgary.com and sign our new petition. We've got over 9,000 people now signing our petition on Safe Water Calgary. So you go to safewatercalgary.com. You see a big blue banner there called petition, and you click on that. And it's a really, really solid petition. And share that with your friends, family, people from out of town too can sign it. And then after you've signed the petition, there's a place that says action button, take action. And so it gives you all the websites or all the addresses of the city councilors and the mayor here to write to. There's some talking points if you want them, or just write them and say, we don't want one of the most toxic things in the planet in our water. That's all you have to do, because they don't read. If I send them 20 pages of science, they don't read that. But they count my letter as one vote for against fluoridation. So if someone just writes and says, I don't want fluoride in my water because it's a poison, check anti-fluoride vote.
So are they not looking at recent rulings around neurotoxins and things like that? Like, how could these two things be happening simultaneously? This is what drives me crazy. I mean, upon reflection of all the science, it is being deemed to be a neurotoxin very close to us in our neighboring country. Yet here we are spending millions of dollars to put it in. It doesn't make sense.
So that's the point I'm going to make in Regina. I applied to Regina in 2 days to present in front of City Council there. And Regina is, they're probably the only Saskatchewan city that hasn't had water fluoridation ever. Saskatoon's been fluoridated since 1967.
Are they still currently fluoridated?
Yeah.
In Saskatoon?
Saskatoon is, Moose Jaw is, all the major places are, North, Battleford, whatever. They're all fluoridated. Regina's held out. But in 2021, they had a group of old councillors that were really attacked by the pro-fluoridationists, Julie Dickson, Dr. Johnny Johnson, American Fluoridation Society. And they passed, I actually presented to that 2021 council meeting, and we were just shot down there. And they voted, I think it was 10-1 to refluoridate, to start fluoridation.
So they're dealing with the same thing in Regina.
So in 2021, they voted and they set over $2 million, I think it was $2.5 million aside to build the infrastructure, initial build.
Cheap?
But they've never done anything about it. Well, it's a smaller city. It's a fifth the size of Calgary, or even less. And so that $250,000 has never been used. It's always just kind of sat there, set aside to, when we start. Well, it's never started. A new council was reelected in November, this past November. Younger, aggressive, more open-minded councillors for the most part. Not all, some have attacked me already. And so we worked with them to put in a motion on March 5th of this year to to reflect on this motion that was passed in 2021. And reconsider is the proper term, that the technical term that the councilors use, reconsider. We say put a pause or moratorium on, but it's to reconsider water fluoridation from the 2021 motion. And so that motion says, therefore, after all the whereases that we had a nice scene in producing, and that have a lot of the salient facts in about neurotoxicity. And so they will put a pause on until water fluoridation can be proven safe and effective. Well, that'll never happen. How can they ever? They'll never be able to prove.
They love using those terms, though, safe and effective, don't they? But what does that? It means nothing.
Yeah.
So until they can prove it, who gets to say when it's proven?
Well, but actually, exactly. So how can they prove it safe if you can't prove it safe? It's a highly improbable task, shall we say. So it's a very good motion, a very strong motion, and the council is, of course, being attacked by the pro-fluoridationists. Did I send you that article from the Defender from about 2 weeks ago?
No.
Called the shocking article.
Oh, I'd have to. No. Oh, yes.
It's the one from the North Dakota councilors.
Yes, you did. Yeah.
So they did a lot of digging, and they found that Dr. Johnny Johnson and his crew had been attacking councillors from every which angle below the scenes using federal money that's not supposed to be used for promoting water fluoridation. And they were caught doing that, and they were caught swearing against these councillors that were standing up against them.
Yeah.
Oh, such a good article. You should put that.
But is anybody being held accountable?
No.
We've got lies, we've got misuse of funds, we've got misrepresentation, we've got bullying.
Yeah. So RFK, you follow Robert Kennedy Jr., he's promised to tackle, he's very much on side of anti-fluoride. So he promised before the election in the States that he would do whatever he could to end water fluoridation in the United States. He promised that he would send out, and then as soon as they got elected in November, he promised to send out on January 20th all the science to all the waterworks organizations in the states, all the 12 states that promote it, and to every water organization. He hasn't done that yet. He's been working behind the scenes. I still have faith in him that he's working behind the scenes to end this. The EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, that lost that 7-year court case in September of last year, they've said they're going to appeal it, but they haven't put their appeal out yet. Well, will they be able to with RFK as their boss now? I'm not sure they'll be able to. I think that's what he's working on behind the scenes, is to stop that appeal. And then the EPA will have to do something, as the judge ordered them to, as the federal court judge ordered them to do in September. They'll have to do something about water fluoridation. Now, what is that something? There's quite a range of things they could do. They could just say, well, pregnant women and babies shouldn't use fluoridated water. Well, that would kind of ripple through the community too, but not as strongly as, say, setting a new point, a new endpoint. So their safe level, their maximum allowed concentration now is 4 parts per million with the EPA, 4 parts per million. Well, we're floating at 0.7. That's a ways away. But even if they use their standard safety factors, I don't know if you're familiar with chemicals. When a chemical is regulated by someone like the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, they have to have a safety factor, because you can't just say there's the cutoff, and these people that are that degree below or that degree above aren't going to be affected or are going to be affected. So there's a safety factor. Sometimes it's 100 times, but usually it's 10. Almost always it's 10 times safety factor. So if you can take that antiquated from 1990 whatever 4.4 parts per million, 4.0, you divide that by 10, that's 0.4 parts per million. We don't fluoridate. But I think what RFK is working for is to have them take that 4.0 that they haven't touched for decades, the EPA have that lowered to 1.5 parts per million. Then you add the 10 times safety factor for people like you and me that might be affected adversely by fluoride. And that turns out to 0.15 parts per million. And we already have that on our Bow River and our Elbow River.
Right.
Bingo.
Oh, wow, wow, wow.
What
I
a-
saw you had a list of 10 reasons not to fluoridate. Do you want to share that quickly?
Yeah, I'll share that with you online too. You can post it for your viewers. So we talked about the federal court case that we won last year. Politicians shouldn't mass medicate. We shouldn't use plebiscites. The skyrocketing fluorosis we touched on. Oh, this is a good one. Yeah. So what part of the world fluoridates? What would you guess?
I was going to ask you that. I don't actually know. I don't think it's very, I thought
Like,
it was low.
would it be half the world
I
fluoridates?
thought it was less.
You're right.
Okay.
95% of the world does not
Does
fluoridate.
not.
It's probably
Okay.
closer to 96 now. Let's give it 95% of the
Okay.
world does not fluoridate.
Wow.
Okay, next door to us, what direction are we here? West, BC, 98% does
West.
not. Yeah,
Fine.
you're right.
Yeah.
98% does not fluoridate.
98%.
98% of BC does not fluoridate. Vancouver's kids' teeth are better than Toronto's kids' teeth. 71% of Toronto fluoridates, of Ontario fluoridates.
Right.
Vancouver's kids' teeth that's never fluoridated are better than Toronto's kids' teeth that have fluoridated since 1967. That should end it right there. Okay, Saskatchewan, Alberta. Alberta's about 42% fluoridated. If Calgary starts, we're going to go over 50% fluoridated in Alberta because Red Deer was the first one in 1959. Edmonton, Grand Prairie, Lethbridge followed in the 1960s to fluoridate. Medicine Hat was the only one that's never been fluoridated in Alberta.
Really?
Saskatchewan's over
I
60%.
think in Canada, considering 96% of the world isn't fluoridating,
Yeah.
Canada's got huge.
38% of Canada. So yeah, over 60% of Saskatchewan, over 60% of Manitoba fluoridates. Over 70% of Ontario, as I said, fluoridates. Guess what Quebec's at? Quebec, they're kind of different, aren't they?
Yeah,
What do you think they fluoridate at?
less.
Way less. 99.75% of Quebec does not fluoridate.
Oh, wow.
99.75. And that last 0.25 of a percent is going to be gone by the end of this year.
Oh,
We're going to be
really?
100% not fluoridated sometime this year.
Amazing. Okay.
Sometime this year. That's amazing. So 95% of the world doesn't fluoridate. 97% of Europe, very progressive. They looked at it 20, 30, 40 years ago. Dr. Hans Muhlenberg in the Netherlands, Dr. Arvid Carlson from Sweden, they all said, you're going to put what in our water? And we can't control the dose? You got to be kidding. They just stopped it. 97% of Europe doesn't fluoridate.
Interesting.
But a bunch of 80-some% of Australia does. New Zealand's now trying to pass a federal law that every single community has to fluoridate.
And you said, and facing fines if they don't. What did you say?
Oh, the Wagaroo, village of Wagaroo. They're going to fine them. They've stood up and they said, we're not going to fluoridate. $10,000 a day fine for every day they don't fluoridate. They're just forcing them to put this poison in their water, forcing them with money.
It's unreal. And the idea that somebody can even impose such a fine, and I mean, nobody has the authority to even do that. It's just,
Yeah, they should not have that control, that power and control.
no.
So let's just finish this off
Okay.
quickly. Fluoride is not a vitamin or nutrient, as I mentioned. So
Right.
it's either a food or it's a toxic waste. That's the only thing it has to be. If it's a toxic waste, it shouldn't be allowed in our water.
But-
If it's a food, it has to be
Simple.
regulated by Health Canada, and it's not. So, or by our provincial government at the very least, but it's not. So it's not needed for a
Not
single
sure.
body function. It's not a food.
Well, it would be helpful anyways. Health Canada.
Oh, yeah.
They're not exactly on the side of health.
Do we have time?
Bit of a
Do we
misnomer
have time
there.
to get into
Yeah,
that
let's
Canada
no,
thing?
that's a whole other talk.
Yeah. So most harmful, as I mentioned, to babies, children, the disadvantaged, and people of color. And it's a proven neurotoxin, as proven toxic as lead and arsenic. We don't want lead and arsenic in our water. We've taken a long time to get it out. One of our chief Canada scientists and doctors and toxicologists, Dr. Bruce Lamphere to the west, to Simon Fraser from Simon Fraser University. He's the top Canadian scientist, in my opinion. And he was instrumental. He was the lead of getting lead out of our system, out of our environment, out of our water, out of our paint. And yeah, and so he's now on board with fluoride. And he's not anti-fluoride. He makes a point, he's not anti-fluoride. He's just studying the science. He says, just because all the science falls on the anti-fluoride side doesn't mean I'm anti-fluoride. I'm staying neutral. But all my science is showing anti-fluoride. So yeah, he's amazing.
Wow.
Dr.
Okay.
Christine Till and her group out of York, amazing people. They're such good people. Juliette Guichon, the unethical ethicist from the University of Calgary, has attacked them relentlessly. She tried to get Dr. Christine Till fired by the president of York University. She went directly to the president to try to get this great researcher fired.
Unbelievable.
And then Juliette keeps talking about, well, they used urine fluoride for this MIRAC cohort across Canada. Well, urine fluoride, it's accepted worldwide as the best standard for studying fluoride, how much fluoride you're intaking during a period of time. But she keeps attacking, even this last week, oh, urine fluoride is null and void. And so all those studies are faulty.
Oh, all those studies, right? And
and
what about all the studies that are supporting it? All those studies too.
Yeah,
So she must be getting some good big bucks to be being the mouthpiece for this.
She's just the head ethicist at the University of Calgary Medical School, so she's allowed to talk whatever she wants. It's sad because
and it's the basic ethics of voting over medicating water for a population.
Yeah.
I mean, the ethics. Do we have to go any further than that?
We shouldn't, but we do.
Okay,
Anyway.
Closing thoughts. Did we cover what you wanted to cover?
Pretty much, yeah. We covered how Dr. Craig Young was taken out. We covered my top 10 reasons. And as I state strongly, I'm going to tell them in Regina too. Any one of my top 10 reasons, any one of them should stop water fluoridation. All 10 together, it should just blow it out of the water.
Of course.
Excuse my analogy.
Yeah.
Thousands of professionals have signed the document, the open letter from the Fluoride Action Network to stop water fluoridation. There's so many better ways to get fluoride if you want it, so it's your personal choice. I was attacked.
You want to do it? Do it.
Do we have time to talk about my problems with the College of Physicians and Surgeons?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'll go through it real quickly.
Okay.
6 years. It took 6 years. So they dragged me through the muck for water fluoridation for 6 years. Juliette Guichon, Dr. Ian Mitchell, the former head of pediatrics in Calgary, and a couple other folks dragged me through the muck with the college. We finally finished it with a court case, a tribunal court, in January of this year. Got fined a bit of money, but they dropped. We had 4 charges. I had 4 charges against me. So we got 3 of the charges dropped. So there's only one little charge left. That one little charge was for professional misconduct, for actually calling out the professional people, the medical officers of health, the dental officers of health, Health Canada, whatever, calling them out when I caught them lying, when they're actually lying, and when I had proof that they were lying. Maybe I didn't say it quite the way they wanted me to say it, but professional misconduct for calling them out when they were lying. So I pled guilty to that. So I pay my little fine. I take my 2-day psychological retrenchment course, like Jordan Peterson has to take, or supposed to take. He moved to the US, who doesn't have to take it. Dr. Roger Hodkinson, do you know Roger from Edmonton, the pathologist? He went through the exact same process as me.
It's so insane. So did they convince you? Did they re-educate you?
Well, I haven't taken the course yet. So Dr. Roger Hodkinson and I, we laughed about it. We're going to meet. So he's from Edmonton. I'm from Red Deer, or I'm from here. So we're going to meet in Red Deer. And we're going to take the 2-day course and drink wine and have a few laughs.
And what were the other 3 charges against you that they dropped?
So they dropped the science part of it. They weren't going to attack me on science. They dropped freedom of speech and the ability to actually put this out to the public. And they dropped practicing outside my scope of medical training. So they're saying, oh, you're just a little old family doctor. You can't talk about
but then we have this unethical ethicist pushing down everybody's
throat. That knows as much as I have in my little...
Exactly. Are you practicing or are you fully retired?
I retired 2 months ago.
Okay, so you are done.
Done like dinner. Yeah.
Wow. Well, you've put yourself out there. You've risked your credentials, your ability to practice, everything, and I appreciate that. And I know many, many, many do, because not a lot of people are willing to put the time and effort and resources into what you're doing.
They don't have to do that. All they have to do is stand up and say no. So it's the easiest thing in the world. How are you going to get glyphosate out of our system? It's going to take decades to do that. And they're going to fight with billions of dollars. Fluoride, you go to your city councilors if you got it in your water and say, city councilors, we don't want this toxin in our water anymore. And so the waterworks guy, like you said in North Dakota there a couple of weeks ago, they said, how long is it going to take to get rid of the fluoride? He goes, well, what time does the council meeting end? 5 minutes. 5 minutes after it ends, I'll have it done. So he turns off the taps, the switches, and within a matter of hours or days at the most, it's gone. It's totally gone. Hours.
I just feel like we're living in a time where the majority of the voice doesn't matter anymore, that there's
Exactly.
underlying agendas that are just being
Exactly.
pushed through.
You hit the nail on the proverbial head.
Oh,
Yeah. So if you don't have it in your water, stand up and say no, like I'm hoping the Regina Council will do. I trust that they will do on Friday. That after they hear all the presentations, they're going to stand up and say, really, do we have to toxify our kids' brains and whack women's thyroids and affect kidney patients and make bones more brittle to save maybe a quarter of a tooth a lifetime? Yeah, okay, maybe not. Let's vote against it.
But and it's the idea that it could even prevent cavities, which I even questioned that idea in the first place. But okay, but who's looking at the cause? Like, right, thyroid's going haywire, and people having to deal with that, right? The bone, like
those costs are never factored in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Who's looking at those costs? Nobody.
Okay. So
fluoride, fluoridation, one of the top 10 public health miracles, achievements of the 20th century, according to the CDC, tiny little public health department that's now totally destroyed and gone. So for the 21st century, one of the top 10 public health accomplishments of the 21st century is the end of water fluoridation.
Yes, amen to that. Seriously. Okay, folks. This is an important topic. Whether you're local here in Calgary, fluoride, not in my water. Absolutely. So if you're here in Calgary, you need to be made aware of this. I'm really surprised how many people don't even know that this is actually on the table and that it was supposedly voted in and we're about to be getting that turned on. Some people think it's there already and that it's always been. Some people have no idea and thought that we shot it down and it's not happening. So get to know this because we need to know what's flowing through our taps. It's crazy.
One more quick point.
Sure.
Okay, so we did vote it in 62 to 38% in 2021, but that 62% is 206,000 Calgary citizens. We now have about 1.8 million Calgary citizens, including the people that we fluoridate around us. Airdrie, Strathmore, Chestermere, Sustina. So all the outlying areas, 1.8 million. So that means that 1.6 million people do not have a say that water is going to be toxified with one of the most toxic elements on our planet next month.
It's amazing.
Sad.
That is amazing. So folks, listen to this, share this. People don't have the facts. We need to know the facts, and the facts make sense. When you look at it, just look at the source. Look where it's coming from. It's illegal for them to just dispose of it. So we buy it and spend $28 million upgrading or creating new infrastructure to house it. Like it's just, this is the stuff of like, you don't, it's just not even believable.
Orwellian.
It is Orwellian. I was going to say, this is the stuff of movies that just seem like so far-fetched you can't even believe it. And there's a really great saying, and I said this in the last interview that I heard somebody say, is the difference between fact and fiction is that fiction needs to make sense. You're putting together fiction, so it has to make sense. But the facts doesn't matter. It doesn't have to make sense, and you can't even make it up. It's that crazy. So do what you can. Go to safewatercalgary.com.
Go on our petition, sign our petition, send letters to the councillors and to the Alberta government. Their addresses are all there. And keep at them.
We have to keep at them. We have to let other people know, if you're living in an area where this is being proposed, or find out what's in your water, because maybe you don't even know that you're living with fluoridated water, and take action to protect yourself from that, because you don't want to continually be consuming that and bathing in that either. So
we're heading for the iceberg with the fluoridation Titanic. We can turn it around.
There, let's see if we can. It's going to take a miracle, but we also have to see the world that we want to live in. And I don't want to live in a world where my water is fluoridated against
water is so
my
important.
will. It is so important.
So as it says in the back of my business card, fluoridation, don't swallow it.
Right. Absolutely. Good one. Okay. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
Nice being
here. And he knows so much. Like, this man obviously knows the research. He knows the people. He knows the facts. So share this. If you have somebody still not sure, they believe what they're being told, share this interview, pass it along, because this is an important topic that we all need to take part in, because it affects us all. Okay, guys. Thanks for listening.
Thanks,
and until next time, ciao.